In a world full of misery, rage, and insomnia, there's a place you can go to just unwind. All you have to do is take a long walk into the mountains, and just past the black house with the secret garden, you'll find a small cabin. Inside that cabin, you'll find the Hole in the Wall Book Club. So now that the dream catcher's hung and the fire started, we invite you to pull up a chair and join the Losers Club as we explore the world of officious little pricks and shining on.
Hello, and welcome to Hole in the Wall Book Club, the book club where we put holes in your wall. If you've been dreaming about having a specific shape hole in your wall, well, come tell us about your hole dream, and we'll put that hole right in your wall. I'm Icy. This is my best friend who's never cheated at putt-putt.
Mark.
There we go.
The legend.
That might have been the best intro Hole in the Wall has ever done.
We try, you know.
Yeah. I like getting progressively worse. It's really my vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way, it just lessens the tension over time.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, I peaked a long time ago. I don't have anything to prove to anyone.
Right, exactly.
I've made like 2 good Twitter jokes. I'm over.
You got 2? Wow, a little overachiever over there, you know?
Yeah, one of them no one got. I was so proud of it. It was oh fuck, what was it? Chess must be really confusing in Australia. And I think everyone took it as a like the board would be upside down joke.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just a joke on like the fact that they say mate a lot. It was a dumb joke, but I was so proud of it. And just Twitter is not ready for my comedy is what happened.
I don't think Twitter's ready for a lot of things.
Yeah. You know what Twitter is ready for?
What's that?
Me to forget to tweet about this episode where we talk about The Shining.
Oof.
That was a complicated sentence. But yeah, we get to start into this chapter, The Shining.
Which I actually felt was really fitting.
Yeah.
Just like starting out. I mean, obviously we've gone through chapters 1 through 10, but I just thought it was a perfect sort of segue into this. So I guess this next section that we did. So
yeah. But I want to segue in by looking to the past and just reiterating that Halloran has just spent like however much time with their kid being like, run away with me. Hey, carry my bags to my car. Now get in my truck and let's have like, okay. So I always find it hard to judge how long time is in a book, but that whole scene is a conversation. Basically, it's the two of them talking. Mm-hmm. I listened to it on an audiobook and the guy's talking at a reasonable, normal pace. And it was like 30 minutes. So let's say maybe 20 minutes. This kid's out there.
Yeah.
Just for all that
sort of happen. Yeah. I mean, I sort of took it as maybe a little bit shorter, maybe like a 5 or 10 minute talk, but still, let's again, like you were saying, let's not forget the context here. Danny is 5 years old, and he's in this older gentleman's car who's about to drive away and fly away.
Yep.
And the parents, they're not like standing outside of the car, by the way. They're inside the hotel looking at him through the window.
Like, oh, it's so good. And we'll give Wendy some credit. There is a point when she looks out the window and she's like, I'm sorry, was he serious? I think he is about to kidnap my kid. And Jack's like, no, he's not. You're stupid. Stop. So I'll give Wendy a little here.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't give her
10 minutes into this 20-minute conversation, she has some reservations.
Yeah, right. She's like, ooh, I'm starting to get a little nervous. You think? But I don't want to bother Jack with this. Like, I don't know. Maybe you should. Like,
yeah. But like all aside of like what's going on with Jack and Wendy and their superb parenting, Dr. Spock would be proud. Which, by the way, they mentioned Dr. Spock in this book. And for a bit, I kept forgetting that Dr. Spock was like a childhood psychologist around this time. and not like a Star Trek reference, which changes context a lot. But what's actually going on in the car, I think, is one of my favorite scenes in this book yet. And it's Dick basically talking to Danny, being like, hey, so you got psychic powers, right? You one of them magic kids. I'm one of them magic kids too.
Yeah.
And we get the term The Shining. It's what Dick's grandfather? A grandmother.
Yeah, right.
What she called it. And I just enjoyed the hell out of this scene. Like, I really enjoyed the way Stephen King writes thought stuff. Just in general.
Right. No, I really liked it too, because I mean, not only is the scene, I think, written really well, but also, one problem that I have with a lot of books is when they need to give you a ton of information, it just feels like a information dump.
Yeah, and it can be so hard to it's like trying to learn the whole tutorial of a game before you get to touch the buttons. You just kind of gloss over a lot of the time.
Exactly. And I just feel like this scene was a very natural way of sort of giving a lot of context to what Danny's going through, and also giving you context that, other people have this. He has it too, which is why they're able to talk like with their mind.
And like further from that, Halloran points out that he's met a ton of people. Well, not a ton, but a good bit of people over the years that have it to some degree. He says that like most people don't even realize it. They're just lucky or just happen to like, what was it? They know when to bring home. They always happen to bring home flowers when their wife's on their monthlies, which what a fucking term. But he's met people who are like aware they have this. So it gives us like a greater framing for the world.
Right.
As well, which he's good at that.
Yes, but
Stephen King is very good at taking one small detail and like making it kind of ripple.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then we're given the most important thing here, at least I think, is he says, "Well, I've known people that have had this to different degrees, but you are by far the strongest I've ever came across."
Right.
Ever. And then I think like right before they get out of the car, I don't know if this is like skipping ahead too much, but he even says, if you're in trouble, you basically reach out to me as strong as you can, and I might just hear it in Florida.
Yeah. There's a bit before there where he tells Danny just like, hey, give me a blast. Just like slam me in my mind with something. And this is another one of these moments where the book could have changed tone, because Danny's like, okay. And then at the last second, Danny's like, I held back. He holds back. He just screams, hi, Dick, into Halloran's mind. And it damn near kills Halloran.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And like, this is one of those moments where like, Danny not held back. It's a very different book. It's Wendy looking out the window. Is that man going to kidnap my child? Why'd that man's head explode? What the fuck?
Oh, God.
It's a very different movie. It's Firestarter or book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sequel to Carrie. Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
And we get like a bit of Halloran's experiences with The Shining. Like, he gets a precursor when he's about to have a vision that he smells oranges. And, like, he was on a Navy ship and saw, I think it was his brother's death before he got the phone call saying, it's like just hey, Danny, you're not crazy. And then Halloran gives some interesting advice about the hotel, which is basically, it can't hurt you.
Well, and here was the crazy thing too, right? Because at the end of the chapter, that's when he says that. And I believe the words that he used was that, yes, they look scary as hell. And you're going to see some really bad stuff. But I don't think they can hurt you.
Right.
The key thing, and he even says it mentally, like once like Danny goes back inside, I think.
Right.
Like, and he is starting to get nervous. So, I mean, not nervous enough to not go back to Florida, but,
I mean, not nervous enough to fully kidnap a child, but I do believe he does ask Danny one more time, like, hey, now that your parents aren't around, do you want to come to Florida? We can leave, right?
Yeah, right.
So Wendy is absolutely...
Cool
Wendy is absolutely right to be worried when she eventually gets worried. This man 100% would take Danny.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy the hell out of that scene.
It is really good. Yeah.
King is such a weirdly specific compliment to give. King is good at giving a child's perspective on really weird shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's, Danny is obviously much more perceptive than a normal child, but like the internal thoughts we get to hear of Danny, like grappling with words that he literally doesn't understand, but feels all the emotions behind, is just really interesting and well done. I enjoy the hell out of that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, right? Is that, you know, he's developing far faster than an average kid because he is being exposed to things that an average kid would not be exposed to. So, definitely. That's all I have. Well, I did think it was interesting. The last line I think of that chapter was like, you know, Holleran driving away, and then I guess in his rear view mirror he sees all of them sort of walk back into the hotel, and then he just sort of says it like, or I guess the narration sort of says it, no, he was thinking it right, and I guess he said like, you know, they walk back into the hotel as if the Overlooked swallowed them.
Yes.
Like, again, it's just like tiny things like that, like that really sort of frame this scene of like impending doom. So
I honestly kind of wish that this chapter had come at the very end of this part. Like, I feel like that would have been such a good place to leave this part on. Because after this, we get Ullman giving the tour to the family. And this, I think this adds a decent bit to like atmosphere, but I just don't think that the way this section ended was nearly as strong as the way that chapter ended, with Halloran like driving away.
Well, we'll get to it, because I actually felt that the last chapter of this section was actually really good, even though it was only like 2 pages long.
Yeah, fair.
So we have one mid chapter to get through. So this chapter is chapter 11, and then so chapter 12. Do you want to get into that now?
Yeah, the grand tour.
The grand.
I don't have too much specific to say here. So if you want to lead this, feel free. It's just kind of Ullman, giving them the rest of the tour, and like there's a lot of atmosphere setting, and Danny being spooked.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Ullman giving them, like the chapter title says, the grand tour. And you know, a few key takeaways I thought was this is where Danny really, like, he sees like blood like on the walls or something,
right?
Like a lot of it, and that's when he turns away and looks back and it's gone. You also get, he also feels extreme unease around the fire hose. Like he even says like it's like curled up like a snake.
Yep.
And he doesn't know why. He doesn't have like a vision of the fire hose or anything like that. He just feels really uneasy about it. So this is when I think this chapter is sort of showing that Danny's gonna see a lot of bad stuff here. You know, it's not gonna be
some of that foreshadowing, I think.
Right.
Never let a good joke lie.
That's right.
Jokes are expensive. Reuse them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite bits of this chapter, though, is Danny just absolutely hating on this big grand rug that Ullman's obviously very proud of. And then when they go into like the caretaker's rooms, being like, oh, well, that's a rug. Why don't you have these everywhere? And it's just this like shitty. Oh, I loved that.
Right. I did like that too. You're right. That's all I really had for that. And then so the next chapter would be chapter 13, which is the front porch, which I actually thought was a great name for this chapter because it was about 2 pages long, and spoiler alert, it happened on the front porch. I know, no one saw that coming.
I know.
So
I gotta say, like, a lot of these chapters, they've been right what it says on the tin, and I gotta appreciate that, because coming up, we got Up on the Roof, and then down on the porch.
Or down in the front yard, yeah.
Oh, down in the front yard, yeah. I bet
And
you
no
can't
one-
guess where those happen.
Yeah, no one's gonna know what's coming up. Nobody. It's impossible to sort of predict. So like I said, I mean, this is an extremely short chapter. I think it's like 2 pages long. It's literally Ullman saying goodbye and getting into his car and leaving.
God, Ullman's reluctant to leave.
He
Like it
is.
says he is. He's like, I'm in love with this hotel. I would like to fuck every orifice in it, but they don't need me in the winter, so off to my mistress hotel. Like, I mean, straight up. Like this man is in love with this hotel.
So the reason why I sort of liked this sort of wrap up is because the language that was used by Stephen King to describe Ullman leaving and describe them truly being alone now. So, like, again, it was like the last paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like, to me as a reader, that gave me a really good sense of like, oh shit, like this is it. They are alone now, and nobody else is there. So that's sort of why I liked it. I felt like that was a good way of sort of saying, okay, now we're transitioning to the next part.
Right. It definitely changed the tone and just set like a nice end cap there. Especially turning the page and then seeing the wasp's nest.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, this is the official book, part 3, Wasp Nest, which starts off with chapter 14.
Yep. Which is up on the roof. I bet you can't guess what we find. I can't remember the word this starts out on, but I did want to point out this starts out with Jack up on the roof replacing the shingles. And it starts out with him cussing.
Yeah, he's like, and you're like, okay, this is a great way to start this.
It's the same feeling. Oh, you goddamn fucking son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Where the very first
line, no context, nothing.
Exactly the same as the start of this book. Because the first line of this book is officious little prick.
Oh, that's right.
I'm going back to part 2. I don't remember how part 2
now I'm
started.
curious. Was this a thing the whole time? We didn't notice?
Oh, right. We did also, I need to point out, we did also during those last couple chapters get what's his name? Watson? The caretaker guy popping up a couple more times to remind us. Remember that? It creeps. It creeps. Don't you fucking forget. It creeps.
No. Okay, so part 2 does not start off like this.
Starts with mommy was worried. All right.
Well, there is that. We might as well quit reading now. There's no point.
Yeah. I've been Stevie King's and you've not gonna finish the book. Fuck it.
Yeah.
From now on, we are no longer reading Stephen King books. We're just going to talk about our appreciation for local heartthrob, Tommy Ross.
Okay.
But yeah, I do like. So this starts out with Jack. He's on the roof. He's replacing the shingles, and he just got stung with a wasp. So we start with, "Oh, you goddamn fucking son of a bitch."
Yep.
And this chapter is so good.
Yes.
Like Alex and I used to talk about the spook notes. This is in the spook notes. Like if you're gonna skip through, read this chapter because it's just really well done.
Oh yeah.
Because we bounce between like the reality of what Jax is doing, of like dealing with these wasps that he found, going down getting the bug bomb. We're also getting him thinking about, I can't remember the kid's name. The kid that at this point, like, we know he's the reason he got fired.
Yes.
But we don't know all the details yet.
Right. And so he has like a full flashback of that entire sort of thing, which we've only been given bits and pieces of so far. And I want to talk about this for a moment. It's important to note that he didn't have this flashback when he went to go get the bug bomb. He had this flashback while he was like crouched over the huge, like 2-foot wasp nest that he saw or something crazy.
Yep.
And like, I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, there's no way that I'm ever having a quick daydream while I'm standing over a wasp nest.
One of which just stung you.
Right.
Yep.
I was like, all right, Mr. Jack Torrance, you might
you got
quit drinking,
some
bud.
priority
Oh,
issues.
Yeah,
The
right.
kid's name is George Hatfield. Just check that. But we get more into what happened with Jack here, or with George, and basically we find out George was just the all-American kid, son of some rich people. Joined the debate team because I think his father encouraged him to, because it'd be good for a lawyer.
Yep.
And George had a stutter that only came out during debate.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Yep. There are some things said there that make me wonder if he has a stutter at all. There's some definite, we're definitely going to learn more about this situation, I think, because it's left on a very big question.
And then another thing too is that, just getting more into this, Jack even said he was an amazing preparer, for debate. His research and his notes were phenomenal. He just could not perform at the most crucial moments during the debate, and he would just go into stutter fits, basically.
Right. So we get this bit where George confronts Jack about the timer goes off to end his time, and he was stuttering through it and didn't get to get his whole point out. And George flips out. He's like, "You set the timer ahead. You cheated me." And we start getting this mantra in Jack's mind of, "I didn't set the timer ahead. I didn't do that. And if I did, it would have just been out of mercy. I didn't set the timer ahead." And this slowly changes as we get more and more of this story to eventually being I didn't set the timer ahead. And if I had, it was only a minute or two, and it was out of mercy.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this is when I think, at least for me, it really just sets the tone of I can't entirely trust Jack's own internal monologue, especially when he's perceiving situations where he himself is involved, because he has an extremely distorted view about himself, which I think we're going to get into more here in a moment as well.
Yeah.
So another interesting thing about keep going.
Oh, and basically how that George stuff ends is we find out that George gets kicked off the debate team, and then slashes Jack's tires. Jack was going out to the car to get some books, and then basically beats the shit out of George. Sees red. He claims the last thing he remembers is George laying, not moving on the ground, and a teacher pulling him off of him. And as we just established, Jack is unreliable as hell. So who knows? But yeah, he beat the shit out of this kid.
One thing,
he beat this kid strong, hard enough. This kid's probably gonna have the Shining.
Yeah. Right. That was good.
Thank you.
So one thing that he said that, and I don't remember if it was in an argument in their office or it was after, right before he kicked his ass. I don't remember when it was, but what was his name again? The kid's name?
George Hatfield.
So George looks at Jack Torrance and says, "You're just mad because I know." And that sets Jack off.
Yeah, I just found the exact line. It's, "You hate me because you know."
And I don't know what he was actually referring to.
Right, same. And that's why I think we're going to get more on this at some point. And George also claims, "I don't have a stutter. I don't have a stutter." And
which is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if this is just the kid refusing to admit it, but that seems like I am pretty good at denial. That is a hard thing to hard deny. Not "Oh, I got flustered." He's just "I don't have a stutter." Just straight up, I don't have a stutter.
And again, we were just talking about how Jack's own perception is often wrong or sort of massaged in different ways, I guess. But I feel like that would be hard to sort of sell right? Because he was sort of a big deal. Like his dad was sort of connected, and they knew that he was a good preparer. I just feel like it'd be one of those things where if this was something that he was wrong about, I feel like it would have caused a lot of problems for Jack.
Well, I
In
mean,
terms of like other people in the debate team be like, dude, what are you talking about? He doesn't have a stutter. Like,
that's possible, but we may have never gotten to a point where Jack got to see the consequences of that because he instead beat the shit out of the kid.
very fair.
So I'm just saying, I think that Jack had a stutter as a child. I think it's something that like might have set his dad off. This is purely in a chapter a little bit later in this section. He flips out at his kid for stuttering.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there might be some weird projection stuff going on, but we'll see.
And this is also when, so after the flashback, this is also when sort of Jack has this epiphany, this like sudden, like, wow, like it's crazy about all these things that has happened to me. And again, we talked a little bit about this last time, but Jack literally views himself as a victim almost all the time.
Yep.
It's like, oh, gosh, like I can't believe all this stuff's happening to me. And he has like these brief moments where he knows it's his fault, like breaking his son's arm, which he still stresses was just a mistake. Right. So yeah, just more pointing towards sort of Jack's psyche, I guess.
Oh yeah, at the very beginning of this, before he starts thinking about George Hatfield specifically, he's thinking about like everyone else who worked there, and it's like, well, they drank. Like this guy used to get a keg on Saturday and drain it on Sunday, and he'd be fine. I just was an alcoholic. And like
right.
it's that same thing. And it's a totally good read.
The suggestion of that is crazy. To say, well, we're all the same because so-and-so would drink every weekend. And the only difference between me and him is I drank every single day and was hardly functional at work. And I'm like, those are not the same.
All right. Okay, buddy. Yeah. And like, we also get a bit about the play he's writing and that like, he's basing the hero of his play on George Hatfield, which I think is more supporting my whole projection theory, because I think Jack is definitely the kind of guy who would writes himself as the hero of his own story, but won't admit it. So I think George Hatfield
is like that. As a child, yeah, Stephen King does that all the time. I mean, Jack.
Hey.
It's a writer writing about a writer writing about a writer. All right, Stephen King. Good job, buddy.
I mean, write what you know, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's like a whole little rant in here about like the bitch of writer's block, and it's like you just had to get it out, buddy. You go to your shed, you do your, and then you get it out, man. We're here to listen.
Yeah, right.
And again, I'm really enjoying this book overall.
I really am too. I feel like I came in at a perfect time because you
got to skip Salem's Lot.
Right, I got to skip Salem's Lot, which I've read before and I could not stand. I've only read bits and pieces of Carrie, but I didn't have any interest in that either. So yeah, I came in at a perfect time.
Next we're gonna do It.
Hard pass.
I just saw you like snap up like. Yeah. I gotta gauge if this is serious because I'm disconnecting if there is any seriousness in those eyes.
Sorry, I'm going through a tunnel right now. I gotta disconnect.
Yeah, this chapter ends on a very good line, which is he went down the ladder to get the bug bomb. They would pay. They would pay for stinging him.
Yeah, and again, it's so powerful to really look at his psyche. It really is. Like for me, I'm like, if I get stung by a wasp, it's like, oh man, holy shit. Like I don't want to get stung again. I don't want my son to get hurt. I don't want to get seriously hurt. Like we got to take care of this. This is a big situation. Not Jack. His son doesn't even come to mind at all. It's
at the very end.
How dare you sting me?
at the very end, his son does pop in a little bit because he's like, I'm going to go get that bug bomb and I'm going to kill them all and give the hive to my son as a trophy so he'll love me.
Oh,
The
that
son
is
comes in
true.
a little bit
That is true.
when he's thinking about like what to do with the
His main
corpses.
motivation for killing them was pure payback. How dare you sting me?
Yep. It's
And
it's
now
really
you're
interesting because like after he's done doing all this reminiscing, when he stands up to go walk down the ladder and do this, he says out loud, like thinking about himself and like the growth. I'm heavy air quoting here. He's gone through. He goes, I'm getting better. And then takes like comfort in his own voice. And then we get the thoughts of like, they're gonna pay. They'll all fucking pay. Like,
Right.
oh.
Yeah, I'm getting better because I'm finally realizing how I've been a victim this whole time.
Yep.
And
Yep.
everything is the world's fault and not mine. So
Yeah. No, he's got it figured out. He's finally figured it out.
also, I do want to take a quick segue here, talking about Jack and getting better, because this isn't something that we talked a lot about last time, and we haven't really touched on it this time either. So Jack quit drinking something like a year ago.
Yeah, it's like 14 months. It's like slightly over a year.
Right. But the very important thing to realize is that every single time Jack gets moderately annoyed, he has the urge to drink again.
Yep.
So like the urges are still there and they're still strong. And we see that in almost every single chapter with Jack in it.
Yeah. We very quickly learned from Wendy that wiping his lips with the back of his hand is one of his old drinking signs, something he'd always do when he was drunk as fuck. And he is just doing it more and more and more as this book goes on, just as a casual, always happening thing.
Yes.
He thinks about, God, I could use a drink, wipes his hand.
Yep. All right. So did you have anything
I'm
left?
good there. Yeah. That was like that chapter was just intense. And like seeing Jack constantly reframe his own life and lie to himself is just says so much.
Also, so when we get this, and I know we said we were almost done here, but when you get this idea that he's going to take the bug bomb, and again, times were different back then. I get it. But he's like, yeah, I'm going to take this bug bomb. I did this when I was a kid too. You just kill all the wasps, and then you put the nest in your room. Again, I know times were different. I get that. Or maybe I don't. Who knows? That seemed wild to me.
Okay, so that didn't faze me, but I am a pretty weird dude, so it probably should have. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I would have put that in like a kid's room. That is something I would have kept for myself. But no, I think you were right.
He's like, yeah, and again, looking at it in the context, different time, and Jack openly says, my dad did this for me. It's just like, I was so shocked. And when I read this, I was like, well, there's no way that this isn't going to come back.
Right.
This is not going to be a set it and forget about it thing. We're going to hear about this again.
Yeah. And so while Jack's up on the roof, he mentions that Wendy and Danny are down at the local, like the closest town. I think it's called Sidewinder. Yeah. And just picking up like books and just various supplies for the approaching winter.
Yep.
They get home. Not too much happens in this chapter. We get a nice like Wendy and Jack are actually like look like they love each other. Like things legitimately from the outside look good there.
Yeah, they're like laughing, having a good time. And I think that Jack and so this is chapter 15 down in the front yard, which happened to the front yard. I think like Jack asks Wendy, like, are you happy? And I think she even says like, this is the happiest we've ever been.
She specifically mentions like during their marriage, which I felt was like such a very specific. She's like, there's something along the lines of like, this is the happiest I've been our entire marriage. And it was such a specific statement.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if we're looking at the flashbacks, like it was pretty much downhill.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was already starting to go downhill even when they did get married. I don't think that getting married was the catalyst in any way.
Right.
I think Jack's a sort of a piece of shit, but
I mean, that's the vibe I've gotten, but that might just be foreshadowing.
yeah, right.
Yeah, and Wendy also flips out when the Wasp Nest Prize trophy, it's very clearly a trophy, is revealed. And she's like, yo, why don't, like, that, it's full of poison and like stinging insects. Why are you giving that to our kid?
Yeah, right. Again, he's 5. By the way, I can't stress that enough. All right, so next chapter is chapter 16, named Danny.
Yep. And I gotta say, when I read this chapter, I had a terrifying moment where I was expecting to say like Danny won and go back into Salem's Lot chaptering, but it didn't. So we're good. We avoided it.
Very, very long chapter.
Yes. It's like the meat of this, I think.
Right. And honestly, this chapter is actually, even in the book, sort of separated into 2 parts. There's like the first half of the chapter, and then it's like separated by like a solid black line. And then the next part of the chapter.
He avoided subsection numbering, which I'm proud of our boy for. So I'll give him a big black delineation line. He's allowed that.
All right. So the first part of this chapter is they're getting ready for bed. And Jack tells Danny to go and basically brush his teeth and get ready for bed. And, you know, he goes in there. He's in there for a long time, and they don't hear anything. Eventually, I think Wendy gets worried. She knocks on the door a few times, no answer. Jack comes in. And it's important to know that he gives him like one chance to open up, and then he pretty much immediately starts to lose his temper.
Yep. Like the door's locked. There's this weird, this is interesting little bit where Wendy points out that like she and Jack don't lock the door, but Danny's really private with his bathroom time. And there was this cool little moment where she's like, it was just one more sign that there was someone new living in the house, not someone that's just parts of them. Right. I just thought that was a cool little thing.
Yeah. No, definitely. And yeah, I mean, Jack is like, hey, like, if you don't open up this door, you're not even going to be able to sleep on the back tonight. Yeah, no, pretty much. Like, he's just like, hey, I'm going to beat you, and you won't even be able to sleep on your back because you're going to be hurting so bad. Like, wow. Again, I may have said this before. Your kid's 5. That's a little intense.
It's really important to just remember the whole time.
Yeah. Right. Eventually, Jack like kicks the door down.
Yep, at Wendy's request, at least, because Wendy's freaking out because she's worried.
And Jack, I mean, yeah. To be fair, like your 5-year-old's not responding at all, and you hear nothing. Yeah, I would have kicked the door down too.
And do you think he has a seizure disorder?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the part.
All that applied to Jack. Like, you know this, and your first instinct is, if you don't unlock this, as I slap my mic.
That was actually perfect. Perfect sound effect, really.
Yeah. Like if you don't open this door, I'm gonna beat your ass. Like, dude, this happens to your kid. This happened to your kid like a week ago.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I wanna call you a cowboy.
Maybe his logic is, well, if he's having one of them seizure things, he won't hear me. It's fine.
Yeah, right. He's metaing it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so they eventually
the door.
Yeah, they bust in, and Danny is having another. I think the book calls it a trance. I
right.
Think. So he's off into his own little world, and this is super interesting because he says a few things why he's in this trance. And I think he stutters why he's doing it as well.
Right.
But he actually mentions Danny having the trance, mentions stuttering, I believe, and he mentions the timer.
Yeah, he says, like, why'd you set the timer forward?
Yeah.
And his dad, Jack, kind of flips the fuck out, and then
big time.
And then immediately justifies, like, no, I misheard that. And then Danny stutters. I can't remember what he says when he stutters, and Jack flips.
I think it was
Like-
the timer. I think that was I think that was the huge trigger there.
Yeah. And Jack flips, grabs Danny, and which is why I'm thinking that the stuttering thing is like something he did that his dad beat the crap out of him for. I really think there's like a cyclical thing we're gonna get revealed there.
Yeah, I'm not. There's so much to unpack there. I'm not really sure. But I think the huge takeaway from this is that like he's not that much better. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
he doesn't break Danny's arm again, so I guess that's progress. But no, and one of the most unique things about this is it was almost as if like Jack. This actually scares Jack because Jack even says it internally. He says once he calms down, he's like, "Oh my god, like I lost my temper again."
Yep.
And like I told myself that it was under control, and I just proved to myself that it's not. So, I mean, this is again like Jack is finally like this was one of the most like self-realizing sort of moments.
Yeah, and we actually get like follow-up to it on the next chapter a little bit.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I don't know, there's not a huge amount more to say on that section, I don't think. I think that's when Wendy's like, "Hey, why don't I want to go see a doctor before we get snowed in?" And Jack's like, "Yeah, let's do that."
Yeah, it's like we should all go get physicals and things like that. Like it's a good idea. So we can get a clean bill of health, he says.
Oh.
I believe.
And then we get the second half, which man, there's no comeuppance here immediately.
Yeah, right. So they go to bed, right? After this crazy thing, Danny's in his room. Jack and Wendy are in their room, which is like attached, I guess. And yeah, man, if you wanna lead this one off.
They wake up to Danny screaming, just bloody fucking murder. Because the room is now swarming with wasps from the wasp's nest.
Right.
And there is such okay, so we just see this progression of Jack being like, "I'm getting better. I'm not getting better. Hey, I'm angry again." Like,
Yeah, right.
they're flipping out because, I mean, rightfully so. Danny's being swarmed with wasps. He snaps at his wife to get like a bowl to cover the hive with. I think by the end of this, Danny gets like 15 big old stings.
Yep.
They eventually calm him down. But what I think is really key here is Jack's reaction to this is to, in fairness, there shouldn't have been able to be wasps left in this. So like he immediately tries to justify like, well, this is why I'm not at fault. I will give him the one thing like that this is definitely some house magic bullshit. Like that's definitely I will give him that one, but his other reaction is I'm gonna go get the camera and take pictures of my son's arm, my 5-year-old son who just woke up screaming, being stung by wasps, so I can sue the bug bomb company.
Yeah, that seemed
Immediately.
right. It was real quick, like, oh, we're about to get paid for this. Like,
and I don't think the payment was even important. I think this is like, well, it's not my fault. It's their fault. The court can prove that. I think the payment's just bonus.
And this goes back to one of the previous chapters where, again, well, when you start talking about killing the wasp initially, I want payback. That's what I want.
Yep.
This is the same thing.
And like, I think this is important to put into context of time because, frankly, consumers were not as litigious at this point. Yeah. So this isn't like someone today being like, I'm going to sue this company, which is things that I have had friends who go on rants about for dumb shit. This is like at a time when you say that everyone's like, that no.
Yeah.
That won't work.
Yeah. It's crazy. And so, and another thing too is that Jack like runs, I think it was Jack who ran downstairs at some point. And he's running this situation through his head. He's like, I know I did it right. I know I did it right. And he even has this thought. where he says, "It's almost as if the hotel is attacking us."
Yep. Almost got it.
Right? Like, Jack, you got it, buddy. Like,
I think it is important to note. I think something we missed back in the Shining chapter with Halloran is Halloran did like say to Danny, like, "Do your parents shine?" And Danny's like, "I don't think so." And Halloran's like, "Okay," because I think he makes some statement like all moms he thinks have a little bit of the shining just until their kids can take care of themselves. And he we get a bit. I don't think he told Danny this, but I think we get his thoughts where he's like, "I looked into Jack, and I just don't know what the fuck he is."
Oh yes, that is right. I can't believe we missed that.
Yeah, he doesn't think he shines, but it's something he's never felt before, and he doesn't know what it is. So I think it's just important that we make sure we say that.
Yeah,
it's something that hasn't come up directly, but yeah.
I wonder too if it, like, in a way, even that early, if the hotel pretty much already has Jack. And this is, again, going back to my insane theory that the bike was put in the middle of the road a year before by the hotel. In that sense, like the hotel has already chosen Jack for a long time.
Yep. I'm wondering if the stuttering thing is part of that too.
Could be.
I'm attaching my little theory to your theory. I'm hitching my theory wagon to your theory brigade, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna go out west. We're gonna get us some theory gold.
Right. We're on the frontier here. So
yes. And then at the end of it, we will turn that gold into Dreamcatcher references.
That's right.
Do you have any more to say on this chapter? Because I don't.
Not really. Again, it was just showing that his anger still isn't under control. And
we do get a bit of Wendy being like, "Hey, my kid loves his dad so much more, and that's not fair because this is Jack's fault. Why is he going to Jack for comfort?" So we definitely need to point out Wendy's definitely got her mom's issues going on.
Right. But also, I'm going to give Jack some credit here, which I'm probably not going to do very often. But
I try not to.
He did follow the thing exactly. And he even said, he goes over this. He's like, "I waited. I shook the wasp nest and I shook the dead wasps out of it."
Yep. He points out that the only thing he could think of is if there were eggs in that. But even then, they wouldn't go for it's not laying time of year, and they wouldn't go from egg to full grown wasp in a night.
Right.
And
so he knows what he's talking about. He's like, this is impossible. And I think that just fuels his anger even more.
And he's trapped in a alcoholic who cried, "It's not my fault I broke my kid's arm too many times" situation. That didn't flow as well as we cried wolf, but we all knew it. We know what was going on there. And then we get to the doctor's office, our last chapter for our episode here today, and the chapter that I have a lot to say about theory-wise, purely because we've both read The Institute.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to start with what actually happens here? Because if I start it, I'm going to talk about my theories instead.
Right. All right. So chapter 17, the doctor's office. Again, I'll give you one hint on where this takes place.
It's in the backyard.
Close. It's in the doctor's office.
Damn.
I know. That sly
Tricky
fox
fools.
Stephen King.
Tricky fools.
Okay, so basically, again, Danny just had one of these trances the night before.
And got the shit stung out by a bunch of wasps.
Yeah, he's been stung 15 times. Which you find out the stings, no big deal. He's okay.
Yeah, he's done yet.
Yeah, they're gonna heal. He'll be fine. And the doctor pretty much tries to get Danny to go into one of these trances in the doctor's office, which happens. He does sort of slip into a trance. For the life of me, I can't even figure out. I can't remember what vision he had.
We don't really get much of it. We get mainly the doctor's perspective. So it's just the doctor picking up mumbled words. Like the doctor hears the word red rum.
Right.
and like clarifies with Danny it's red rum, not red drum. Somewhere in this last section, Danny brought up red rum with Jack, and Jack misheard it. Yeah, we don't get much. It's just like we get this description of Tony and like how Tony will come and he goes with Tony to see the visions. We also get him saying that like he doesn't talk about it much with his parents, and like knowing that his mom is currently sad about her sister and thinking about her sister who like died when they were very young in the waiting room currently. I just want to point that out because it's important for my tearing down this doctrine a bit.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I get it. There's sort of this sense, right? Like if you're a medical professional, like you feel pretty confident in your own abilities, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So even though this crazy thing happens, we're like, oh yeah, Danny actually, he just happened to know exactly what you were thinking 5 minutes ago. He's just really perceptive. And that goes on to a long stream of things. Like they talk about the trunk under the stairs. And he was like, well, it was just process of elimination, right? Like you said you checked everywhere. So Danny, just being a perceptive kid, is like, oh, it must be exactly under the stairs in the basement at 5.
Yep.
Or at that point, he was probably like 4. Again, I'm just like, wow. Maybe we have different versions of perceptive, because that's pretty intense.
Or maybe spoilers for the Institute. Tune out for a couple minutes and like, I don't know, go read that book real quick, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever. It won't be major spoilers. It's just like setting stuff, not specific plot stuff. Or maybe the doctor is one of the watchers for the Institute, and he is downplaying it so that they don't leave the hotel, because he knows they're going to be snowed in, and that'll give him time to get those agents out and pick up this kid. Because the thing that really got me is that he asks Wendy about her sister. Wendy tells him her sister died, and that she hasn't told Danny about that. And he doesn't make a big deal about it. He specifically starts, like, he receives what should be confirmation of psychic ability, and then immediately turns into downplay it to the parents mode so they don't freak out and think anything's going on.
And see, I wasn't quite sure I just wasn't sure if that was just because of his own hubris. Like, he's just so arrogant and just so full of himself that he's automatically dismissing something that would in any way disprove or challenge his initial sort of diagnosis.
I think you are right, but I will not admit it. And the reason I think you are right and will not admit it is I, at this point, firmly believe that Stephen King had no concept of fitting any of his books together. I firmly believe they were isolated books. He never, I honestly believe, and I think I've said this in the cast before, that I think the whole Stephen King's books all being in the same world started the moment someone was like, hey, Stephen King, are all your books in the same world? And he was like, yeah. Of course they are.
Yeah, right.
So I think you're right when this was written. Right now, because theory crafting is more fun, this guy works for the Institute, and we both fucking know it.
I mean, I am curious if this guy, because I kind of don't think that he does, but I am kind of curious to see if this guy ever comes back up.
Right. We'll see.
Because again, I'm torn, right? Because I get it from a professional standpoint. Like a medical doctor is just going to immediately think the parents are crazy, right? Like he's seen it all before. Like he's just trying to downplay it. Look, guys, like your kid's not psychic. Okay.
He's just schizophrenic, but all kids are a little bit.
Oh, right.
You know, as someone with schizophrenia, I'm not going to rant about that too much because I'm just going to write a lot of that off to a product of the times.
I mean, right. I mean, even, I don't want to get too sort of.
To be fair, for the time it was written, that was reasonably, like the way schizophrenia was addressed was reasonably respectful for the time.
Yeah, and we don't even really address mental health issues well now. So,
So
hate if we got
good
too
on you. Good on you, doctor whose name I can't remember that I'm pretty sure works for the Institute and is evil. Good on you.
right.
Uh,
One thing that I did find was interesting, and dude, I tried to figure. I hope it's not obvious, and I'm just like the only person that's confused about it because I thought on this for a long time, and I still cannot figure it out. The doctor at some point, when
Right.
only talking to Jack and Wendy, say, has he realized the significance of the name Tony yet? Like, obviously it wasn't. He gave like a few other common names. He's like, has he realized the significance of specifically Tony yet? And I'm like, what? I was like, I don't. Like,
Yep.
where's
I don't
he
need.
coming from?
Don't worry. That's not just you. When Alex and I recorded this episode last time, we had this exact conversation, and I still don't know.
Yeah, like I I read it like
Not
seven
just you.
times. And I was
think
like,
we as the readers don't know yet, or we're
Okay,
both
well-
dumb, and we lose all credentials after this episode goes out. So
if somebody knows, please tell us. Or,
Don't
or
fucking
maybe it comes up later.
I'm hoping. I think it comes up later. That's my guess.
But how would the doctor know so quick?
I don't
If
know.
the doctor doesn't know them.
Is it if it's some weird time thing? Was there like a famous Tony that like
Dude,
we
I
don't
have
know
no
because we're not old enough? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
So another thing I would like to say after all of these chapters that we read, and we had this talk last episode where I sort of asked a question: does Tony have does he have his own consciousness? Like, is he his own being, or is he just an extension of Danny's powers? And I believe after reading these chapters as well, I am more in the camp where I truly believe that Tony is just an extension and basically like a personification of Danny's powers. Because realistically, Tony's not that helpful.
Tony's helpful in the same way The Shining is helpful in other books. Like anytime The Shining shows up to like help someone out with like fate, it's never a clear like, and here, do this thing. It's always like, well, that is a major spoiler for there are some things that happen in like it that become plot significant in Dreamcatcher that I think are the same way that Tony tries to help. So
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things where it's like, hey man, I'm going to show you your dad trying to kill you again. You're brushing your teeth. Why not? It's a good time. I'm just like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
And that's why there's so many things. Like there was one point in the first episode where we were talking about it, and at some point Tony was like, "Don't go," but he doesn't tell him where. Like Danny has no idea, and he's 5. He doesn't have the agency to just say, "Hey guys, I've actually came to the conclusion that I would like to not go."
I mean, in fairness, Wendy does give him that agency at a certain point. She's like,
yeah, but I wonder like how much
there's a power dynamic there. He can't.
Right. When your mom, and again, we talked about this before, like you believe going to this place is the thing that's like keeping your parents together, and now divorce is off the table. You're not going to say no.
Yeah.
But well, remember, he's only had visions of the Overlook, and he never connected the dots that was the place he was literally about to go to, which I think is just more clues to show that Tony is an extension of his own mind, because his powers are reaching out. He's like one of the most powerful kids ever, right? So it's reaching out, it's seeing stuff that's going to happen in the future, but he has no context. If Tony was another being, he could say, hey, this is the Overlook Hotel that your dad's interviewing at right now. Don't go.
That's fair. Oh, we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and the other reason why this works is because I have completely forgotten every single line of Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to this book that happens way later.
That's
I've read
fair.
it and don't remember a thing about it.
The kicker here is I've read it. I remember most of it, and I'm fairly certain the name and the things you were asking about with Tony aren't explained in that book. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure they aren't.
Right.
And I guess I think the only other thing I want to say about the doctor is the doctor basically is just like, yeah, so Tony was a coping mechanism because your kid thought you were going to get divorced, and this is him getting over Tony. It'll be fine. If it isn't, once you're not snowed in, come see me. I'll get you a child psychiatrist.
Yeah, I was trying to wrap my head around that too. Well, now that Tony doesn't have any usefulness, he's like rebelling and showing Danny terrible things. Like, what?
I think there might have been a little bit of like schizophrenia / DID crossover because there was a lot of issues. Well, there are still issues with that specific thing, but more so the further back you go.
Right.
So it felt like mixing like alters and schizophrenia symptoms. But you know what? It was a good narrative device.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's where we end this section, basically, unless you have anything more to say.
No. I think that's it for me. I'm pretty excited to start the next section.
Yeah.
This has been good so far.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. Any short-term predictions? Any predictions you want to just throw out there? I predict that at some point the boiler will creep.
I know that's been mentioned a few times. I'm still on the fence about that one though. It's tough to say. It's tough to say if that's going to happen. I would say this isn't really a prediction, so to speak, but I feel like now that we got some of this stuff out of the way, I don't know what's about to happen. I didn't even read the next chapter name.
I
feel like they're going to get like snowed in like the next chapter or two.
Yeah, this is at the point. We are now at the point that I've no longer read. Okay, no longer read recently because I read The Shining way back in like high school, back in the time before my memory started. So I'm getting back into less familiar territory.
Yeah, I just feel like that the natural progression at this point is, I think maybe they'll have like a few more days, and it could be longer in book time, but we may actually only see a few more days as a reader.
Right.
And who knows, maybe you see Jack start to deteriorate a little bit more and Danny have more visions. But like I said, I feel like we're pretty much to that point where they're about to
I will say, looking through my post-it notes to see what is in our next episode, we're going to be doing chapter 18 through 24.
Okay.
And that is going to bring us right to the end of part 4. And right to the end of part 3. So I do know that part 4 is called Snowbound. So I think your prediction might be right.
Oh, okay. But that's not until the end of this, huh?
Right. So I think we're going to get the snow, like we're going to get this next section to be like the last bit of that as I slap my mic again. It's a new intro.
You always do it at a perfect time, though.
I get very expressive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we're going to be going through, I literally just said that. 18 through 25.
Oh.
25.
Reading 25?
Yes. Okay. 18 through 25 inclusive. So we're about inclusivity here, folks.
That's right.
That's why we have the love for local heartthrob, Tommy Roll.
Our favorite.
Anything else before we end this up? This dumpster fire we call a podcast?
No, I'm pretty much good. Like I said, I'm excited.
Okay. Until next time, I guess I've been a bunch of angry wasps that are going to get vengeance on your child. You're reading the book. You know, someday. I know we're in the middle of season 3, but someday we'll get a good outro.
We'll work on it.
Yeah.
Like I said, like you were saying, you don't want to start out too high.
Yeah. Nah, by the time we finish Stephen King's library, we'll figure this out.
Yeah. Although
we'll be in killer shape when we start our Animorphs reread podcast.
Oh dear God. I don't know if I signed up for that much.
Hole in the Wall Book Club is a part of the Icynewyear Productions Network, and produced and edited by Anthony Sheets. The music in this episode is Supernatural Radio by Kevin MacLeod. There'll be a link to his license and website in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of us, tweet us at Icynewyear, or send an email to icynewyear@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to tell a friend, or leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice. Word of mouth and 5-star reviews really help us get out in front of more people, and let us expand and do more things. More information on the show can be found on icynewyear.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.